So just to finalize, there is this really interesting case in Finland about a city which is about 100 miles northeast of it. You see Finland up there, you see where the city is. It's a very small country, 5.2 million people. Tampere is the largest city in the Nordic countries. And the reason why this city is really interesting in the context of the questions and the project that we're dealing with is because it's really the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. And that might look familiar to you in the sense that so many old industrial cities that emerged around bodies of water look very similar everywhere. And in this case, you see a map over there, there are two lakes. And the reason why industry developed here was because there is an altitude difference between the two lakes. There are some rapids there, and someone, a businessman from Scotland, saw this and said, this is a good place to set up a facility, a textile mill. Right now, what is interesting is that this city has continually reinvented itself. And today, just to give you an example of one of the big industry clusters that has survived and become very strong is machinery. This is, for example, a forest harvesting machine, a walking one. And it's really like a thing coming from Star Wars, if you look at it. I didn't know that cutting trees could be so high-tech, but when you look at it, it's just remarkable. But what I really want to do is, I have a copy of a paper with me for those of you that might be interested here, is that all the cases that we have discussed, the cases that Bob touched on from North Carolina, these cases and all of those cases that have been able to reinvent themselves have depended on this alignment that we're speaking of institutions, of actors, meaning people and organizations, and of resources that have been able to move and to change the economic development trajectory of an economy. And just as a leeway into the questions that we would like to input from you, I want to show you this little video here that when I saw it, I thought, what a great thing, because it really so many parallels with what we're trying to do. It's a wonderful story, and I have the fortune of spending time there as part of some research I did in the past, and this is where my love of all the industrial cities come from. And it's just such a fascinating story to know how these economies and these cities reinvent themselves. And in that sense, there are also these great assets in these cities. I remember someone there said, when they were thinking of demolishing all of those old industrial buildings around the rapid, somebody said, no, we cannot do that. This is part of our identity, and we have to reinvent it and to use it in order to move forward. So I guess that's the point, that these past can be a part of the future. And with this in mind, really, as we think of what are the institutions, what are the actors, what are the resources that are converging in this time, and that we would like all of us to see, play, and especially with what strategy, we posed 3 questions that you see in the agenda. What does reinventing the local and regional economy mean to you? Of course, there are all these stories in the United States and around the world, but what does it mean here? What are some of the ongoing efforts that need to be accounted for and integrated into comprehensive economic reinvention strategy? And finally, what are the key categories, classes, and aspirations of the city region that could be incorporated into these questions that we're going to ask others to come and help all of you